Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this. This is the last of our run of community conversations. We've done, oh crikey, it feels like hundreds of them over the last few weeks, but we've now finally descended on West and South Twickenham. For those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Gareth Roberts. I am the leader of the council, and I am the host for the evening. Really, I'm not here to be answering the questions. This is why we have all of the councillors here, but I play the role effectively of the new lifeline that they have in Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, that ask the host, so that if any of your local councillors are stumped, which I doubt they will be, to be honest, but if any of them are stumped on a certain issue, then they can ask me to, weigh in with a few well-chosen words. So I need to go through some housekeeping, first and foremost. The event is being recorded and will appear on the council website. So if you ask a question, and I hope you will ask a question, your question will be preserved for posterity, because we're going to have a recorded version of this going up on the council website. If you do ask a question, then we will unmute you. But what we would ask is, if you've got your camera turned off, then please switch your camera on, because it makes it so much more alive if we can see the people that we're talking to rather than just a black box. You may be asking, how do I ask a question? Well, it couldn't be simpler. Zoom has a function called chat, which you will see downstairs on the little toolbar. If you want to ask a question, just type the word question in the chat function, and I will see that, and I will know who to come to in each particular order of who's asked the question. Don't write the question itself, just write the word question. Also, don't use the raised hand function, because if you do raise your hand, then you get taken out of the list. You get transported magically through the ether into a different list, and sometimes we miss people, and that can be very upsetting for them. Please don't use the chat function to have a chat, to discuss items, because what also happens is that we get these huge screeds of text that I've got to filter through, and I miss people's questions. And people get terribly shirty and start accusing me of denying them their voice or stifling democratic debate. It's not the case at all, it's just I miss it. So please don't use the chat function for chatting, just write the word question and I will come to you. If you do speak, or we've done that about the camera, what we have is the internet equivalent of bouncers, because what we have is a code of conduct, code of etiquette. And what we would hope is that everybody's going to be calming and happy, and not effing and jeffing either when they ask a question or in the chat itself. But however, we are prepared, should we need to take people to one side and just say, excuse me, would you mind reining it in a bit? But I'm sure that that won't be necessary this evening. And there we go. There is the event etiquette, all of the stuff done. So all I need to do now is introduce you to the people that we have joining us on the call today. We have, for South Twickenham, we have Councillor Richard Bennett, Councillor Michael Butlin, and Councillor Katie Mansfield. And for West Twickenham, we have Councillor Piers Allen, we have Councillor Alan Jorians, and I hope by now we have Councillor Helen Lee Parsons. Special guest performers this evening, we have Acting Inspector Rumi Mir from the local police, who will be able to answer hopefully some of the questions regarding policing that you may have. We also have Paul Chadwick, who is the Director for the Environment. And I think, oh yes, we also have Councillor Julia Needham-Watts, who is the Chair of the Environment Committee. And I believe somewhere amongst you, there is Councillor Martin Ellengorn, who is the Vice Chair of the Environment Committee. So you've got a good panel of councillors and experts here to help this evening. Now, what we usually do with these events is to kick things off with an update from the council. It's a short video, which you're going to be enjoying any second now, which is going to give you some idea of what the council has been up to on your behalf over the last few months. And if we could roll the tape, thank you.
The first half of 2020 has been an extraordinary period for all of us. The COVID-19 pandemic has had a profound impact on all our lives. The council has not been immune. The pandemic has brought huge challenges to us and to the way in which we deliver services to residents. Throughout the whole period, we have been committed to providing key services to all residents and help to those who need it most. As a snapshot of some of the things we achieved in just the first month of lockdown alone, we provided more than 6,000 hours of home care. We provided social care for over 1,600 vulnerable adults. We answered over 2,000 calls to our community hub. We provided 47 rough sleepers with accommodation. We delivered over 500 books directly to residents from our libraries and saw a 365% increase in people using our online library services. We had over 42,000 views of our online sports classes. We collected an estimated 47 tonnes of waste and recycling every day. And we kept our 51 schools open, providing education for over 500 children of key workers and vulnerable families. We know that things haven't always been perfect, and many people have been frustrated by some of the lockdown measures that have been put in place, and the fact that some of our services had to stop to ensure the safety of residents and staff. But we've been committed to prioritising those most in need. During this challenging period, I have been blown away by the continued incredible community spirit that we have seen across the borough. The pandemic has brought out the very best in so many of our residents, with neighbours providing a helping hand, the weekly clap for our carers and frontline workers, residents donating to food banks, and the general willingness of so many to go above and beyond in their support for members of our communities. Following a call for volunteers, Richmond CVS received a staggering 3,000 applications from residents eager to help in any way they could. We have seen groups delivering food parcels, setting up virtual fitness classes, checking up on elderly residents that are shielding, and collecting prescriptions. This generosity from residents and local groups has been genuinely humbling. And as we look to the future and towards recovery, we know that there are still huge challenges ahead. The recovery period provides us with an opportunity to make environmental changes that are needed across the borough, and we have already started implementing some of these. For example, we have already started with our post-COVID-19 highway recovery strategy, looking at how we can ensure social distancing, encourage walking and cycling, and ensure our children can get to school safely. Over the next few weeks and months, we will be looking at other ways we can support local communities. And of course, residents will need to play their part in the future as they have done over the last few months. We've worked hard to ensure that businesses have received the funding they're entitled to, awarding a total of £35.79 million to over 2,100 local businesses. But now as our high streets begin to reopen, we all need to make sure that we support our local shops. Many of our businesses are run by local people, and if we don't use them, we will lose them. As we emerge from this difficult period and look towards recovery, we want residents to come on board and provide us with their thoughts and ideas on how we can create a better borough for all of our residents. This moment provides the Council with an opportunity to reflect and improve the way we work and engage with residents, and your support and ideas are key to that. Thank you for coming this evening, and I look forward to hearing from you all.
Okay, so there we go. Just some of the ways in which the council has been helping out and getting things done over the last few months. You will have no idea how pleased I am to that is the last time I will have to listen to that video, because I was going for statesman-like in the approach, where it was just a dull tone, but it was interesting stuff. It was just poorly delivered. But there we are. You know, always worst critic. So now what we're going to do is we're going to hear from your ward councillors, and we're going to have an update. First and foremost, we're going to go to South Twickenham, and we have the first of our updates from Councillor Richard Bennett, if you would be so kind.
Thank you, Gareth. For those who don't know me, I'm the leader of the Greens on the council, and I don't want to sort of go on for very long, because I won't be allowed to go on for very long, but I do want to touch on some of my concerns. And so I'll start with Twickenham Green, which is very much part of my ward. And you may recall how difficult June was, and in terms of social behaviour. And some of you may have been on that virtual meeting we had at the beginning of July. that brought home to me, and I guess to many of you, that just how difficult things were at that time. And also, I think, with all due respect to Acting Inspector Rumi Mia, how relatively underpoliced we have become, and how concerning that was in the circumstances that were in terms of the social behaviour on Twickenham Green. Of course, we do have our own park guard, but and excellent though they may be, that is only 2 people covering 134 green spaces. That's the scale of the task. So, and of course, obviously, they don't have the powers that the police have to in terms of their work. So that was very concerning. I was a bit concerned too that while at that meeting we were talking about installing public toilets, that it's still a decision. I'm disappointed. It's a decision that hasn't been taken in time to have any real effect this summer. And I think we're left with a decision that will, well, it would be a question of getting it right, and getting it right for maybe the spring of next year. So we'll have to accept that. But I am registering that was a bit of a disappointment. Now the other issue around the green is the state of the green. It's a very heavily used green space, as indeed is Nella Gardens, for example. And the footfall has the impact with all the other activities of sport and fitness clubs and so on. It has the effect of producing some very worn patches. And it's particularly bad, the tip of that triangle, as it goes towards Arthur's. And that needs a respite. So I'm very anxious about that, and that something should happen over autumn and winter to fence off part of that green to give it a respite and chance to recover. And another issue that's coming up at the moment is Zippo's Circus that wants to come here in late September, and we have to take a decision on that. I'm concerned about public health issues on that one, not just the state of the green, but the public health issues, because I think it's remarkably difficult to expect a circus and its staff to maintain over several days compliance with the right sort of standards. So that's another decision that's coming up fairly shortly, I would think. And one of my other concerns is South Road, where the residents are feeling really rather battered by having Lidl starting up this summer, and actually turning out not to be a particularly good neighbour. Many residents, including parents with young children, have been disturbed by noise from generators, early morning deliveries, light pollution, car horns, reversing lorries, and it's going to get worse in terms of light pollution in particular as we approach winter. So that's a concern of mine, and one that which we have to address. And it has been, in terms of environmental health, there has been sort of a good contribution made by us on that. But unfortunately, they are using all the excuses that they can to say they must do exactly what they want. And that is a real worry. So I don't really want to go on much beyond that and give other people a chance to talk, but I'm looking forward to the questions, which I'm sure would touch on a number of other topics. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Richard. And now Councillor Katie Mansfield is going to give the second award.
Yeah, we did split this. So just to reiterate that what Councillor Bennett has said, Councillor Butlin and I also support the work that is being done in that with regard to Twickenham Green and also South Road, where we've got the residents suffering from some of the little behaviour. So, but some of the other stuff that we're doing across South Twickenham and that we've heard from residents already, we're aware of in the Strawberry Hill area, the concerns that people have with regard to the parking and exactly how the kind of different zones work. So we have been doing another consultation, the 6-month review of the installation of the Strawberry Hill CPZ. And that closed on the 7th of April, so we're in the middle of analysing that data at the moment so that we can get the right solution for all the residents there south of the Green. It was mentioned in the video just now about some of the environmental and active travel concerns that we have with regard to post-COVID, what's going to happen. We have a lot of stuff that's going on in South Twickenham. So first of all, we're looking at the school streets for GEMS and for, or GEMS has got its school street, actually, it's already gone in, and St. Richard Reynolds, we are hoping to put a school street in September, which should also help with all of the cut-through traffic north of Heath Road, another thing that residents have been talking to us about. We've also bid from TfL for cycle improvements for Staines Road and Strawberry Vale. Other things that we've been hearing in the last while, we've had the planning permission that was turned down for Greggs in the last on the 5th of August. So we've the council has decided that remains as an industrial use for there. What we've seen fall off our radar a little bit in terms of communication from residents is not really a surprise. We haven't heard much about St Mary's University or Strawberry Hill House because they've been closed. So that is something that we haven't heard so much about, but we will be keeping an eye on that as they come to opening again in September, October time.
Okay, thank you very much for that. That's south for you. Now we move over to west, and we have Councillor Alan Joriant, who's going to give us the roundup of news for West Twickenham.
Thank you. Well, I'll just go over a few of the major issues that have come up. Anyway, last year, TfL consulted on changes to the local bus routes. The suggested change to the 110 would have made it much more difficult for residents of the ward to get to the West Middlesex Hospital. The change to the H22 route would have significantly reduced capacity to Richmond. So representations were made by residents and councillors, and the latest proposals, which are set to be implemented later this year, have extended the H22 route to West Mid and increased peak time services of the 490, which should go some way to alleviating our concerns. Over the past few months, there's been a considerable drive to improve facilities for active transport, and one of the suggestions for our ward has been a segregated cycle lane in Staines Road, where the pavement is particularly wide. We are the proposal has gone in, and we're awaiting the response of TfL as to whether funding is available. In First Cross Road, cycle contraflow was proposed, and ward councillors met with residents on the green to discuss their concerns. There was considerable opposition to the idea because the road was felt to be far too narrow and could lead to accidents. It was also thought to have little value, as Second Cross Road is very close by. We have made sure.
That's all right, Alan. You just froze temporarily. Keep going.
We have made sure that Highways Department is fully aware of the residents' concerns. So school streets have been set up around several schools in the borough, and the Elmsley Road entrance to Trafalgar School is under discussion, which would make it the first in West Twickenham Ward. There was also support from the First Cross residents for one around Jack and Jill School, but the school itself needs to lead on any proposal, I believe. We've been very impressed with the community spirit of our residents during the lockdown. Large numbers of people have volunteered to help their neighbours. The West Twickenham Facebook page Mutual Aid has been a great source of information and support, and several streets have set up social media groups, developing a real community spirit. We are looking for nominations for the Community Heroes Awards at the moment, so please nominate anyone you think deserves some recognition for their efforts. The lockdown has affected council services as well. There has been some concern over grass verges not being cut and seeming to attract litter. We have been assured that the maintenance teams are now back at work in Twickenham, and many verges have already been cut. There's also been some trialling of a new approach to cutting verges, with some being left longer between cuts to encourage biodiversity. We will continue to monitor how this progresses. There has also been some concern over waste collection, with some collections being missed and bins being overloaded in the parks. This has been directly related to the lockdown, with much more domestic waste being produced, meaning lorries were full before they completed their rounds and had to come back the next day. The routes have been adjusted, and this should now be under control. The most recent CPZ in Second, Third Cross and Chestnut Road came into operation just before the lockdown and seems to be working well. The initial 6-month review period is still underway, so if you have any comments to make, there is time to add them to the review. There was a proposal for a fun fair on Nella Gardens, but there was concern over controlling the numbers that may attend and maintaining social distancing. So for this year, it won't be going ahead. We are also trialling moving ward surgeries around the ward, starting with Glebe Gardens Community Centre this Saturday afternoon. So please call to book an appointment if you want to follow up on any issues. Just today, we have had notification of an application being prepared for a 5G phone mast on Meadway at the start of Crane Park. We would be interested to hear residents' views. Finally, we've had a few suggestions for the ward fund, which will come up later. Thank you for listening.
Okay, well, there we go. And Councillor Torrance has just mentioned the local area fund, which is a new initiative which has been launched by the council. We're very good, you may have noticed, under various political persuasions at taking money away from residents. However, this is something where we're going to be giving money back. It's called the local area fund. It's going to be, we're inviting suggestions, and I could tell you all about it, but we have a pre-prepared video with a much better voiceover from Councillor Jim Millard, who's going to tell you all you need to know about the local area fund. So if we can now show that video.
A new £180,000 fund has been launched to help support community-led projects in every ward in the borough, helping to rebuild local areas and connect communities after the impact of the coronavirus pandemic. The £10,000 pot for each ward is intended to support local initiatives, helping launch new ideas and developing projects to make a positive difference to our borough. The COVID-19 pandemic has had a widespread impact on how we deliver services and support local people. We welcome all ideas on how to improve your local area, particularly those that aim to help rebuild our communities, connecting people and finding new ways of supporting each other. Any individual, local group, charity or business can submit an idea or apply for a grant. Applications need to demonstrate how the project meets one or more of the following priorities. Enable local people to develop, agree and deliver their own responses to local issues and build stronger communities. Make public places more attractive, enjoyable and distinctive. Support local initiatives that address the causes of climate change and minimise the environmental impact of carbon, waste and pollution to protect the future of our borough and our planet. Promote the vitality of our town and neighbourhood centres. Widen participation in sports and physical activity. Enhance the artistic and cultural offer and protect the borough's heritage. Improve health and well-being. Improve crime prevention. Improve community assets. Before you apply, you will need to discuss your idea with your ward councillor to see how it fits with local priorities. You can do this by sharing your idea online or contacting your ward councillors directly. And then, your idea will be reviewed by ward councillors and officers to recommend next steps for your idea. This may include an application to the local area fund, but could also include signposting you to another source of support or funding for your idea. If the idea is suitable for the local area fund, we will invite you to submit a formal application. Once a complete application has been submitted, it will then be reviewed and we'll let you know if it has been successful. We look forward to hearing from you.
Okay, so there you have it. £10,000 per ward may not seem particularly a great deal, but if you add it all up together, £10,000, 18 wards, £180,000. It's not exactly, the lost city of El Dorado, but at least it's something. And of course, all of the usual channels of funding still exist. So the Civic Pride Fund will still be going along, and the Hampton Fund will still be dishing cash out, and various charities across the borough. But this is something which we felt would help localise funding to ward level. So if you have suggestions, if you have ideas, get in contact with your local ward councillors. Now we come to the part which you've probably actually been waiting for, rather than just getting lots of flim flam and persiflage, which is the word for the day. If you wish, you can ask questions, and I was hoping that we were going to have lots of questions because we had one from Susie, which was straight, pull it out of a gun, 1 minute past the opening, and we have one question, but that's it so far. So do start thinking. If I can remind all of the councillors who will be answering questions that you are on the council shilling is in the meter, so please no breezy chit chat and no party politics. And if I could recommend that residents, should they wish to exercise breezy chit chat and party politics, there are other places for that. So here we go. First question from Susie, who has got a question to ask on Cross Deep.
Thank you very much. I wondered if you could just update me as to when the corridor review will take place on Cross Deep. If you remember, Councillor Roberts, I spoke at Cabinet.
Susan, I didn't realise it was you.
Yeah, sorry,
Hello.
Susie, hi. You promised me at Cabinet in March 2019 when I made a representation about Cross Deep remaining 30 miles an hour when all the surrounding roads were 20. Because, as you will be aware, there's 2 schools and a park, whereas Richmond Road, which is partly in the same ward, has 2 schools and a park, and was deemed to be necessary that it went to 20 miles an hour. And then, in addition to that, those people who were eagle-eyed will have seen within the consultation on the Zone D parking that there would be a consultation taking place on what was classed as all parking on Cross Deep, and it was shown as being in the papers for 2020 to 2021. I wondered if you could tell me what that would involve, whether it could be done as part of the pushing Cross Deep hopefully to 20 miles an hour, and if you've got a date for that, and any other updates really.
Okay, who has updates regarding Cross Deep and the corridor study? Councillor Mansfield.
The corridor studies, unfortunately, the LIP funding was removed for the corridor studies for the 20 mile an hour, both for the Staines Road and for the Cross Deep area. However, that doesn't mean that we don't think it should go ahead, but it has meant that it hasn't gone ahead as fast as we should be able to do it. So we're looking at gauging support for it. I'd like to try and get a petition supported by residents to say that we want to get this done, and that can put the pressure on to get the funding back for it. So that has been delayed. The CPZ, the parking in the Cross Deep area, is part of the main Strawberry Hill review that we have, that has just closed on the 7th of August. So what we're doing now, including the area of Cross Deep, is we're looking at what everybody has asked for, seeing what sort of road, whether there's roads that should be added. We've had petitions from places like Clive Road and Hawkesley Close that wanted to be included in it. We've had communication from some of the interim roads that they wanted to change the hours. So the best way and most efficient way of doing that was to go out to consultation, find out what everybody wanted, and over the next few weeks we should be understanding exactly what that is. So I'm talking about end of August is the sort of time we'll first get the initial recommendations that we'll start talking to people about.
Okay, thank you. Yes, of
course. Can I
course.
just follow up on that? It's very disappointing about the 20 miles an hour, obviously, on Cross Deep, because in fact, on the day that I spoke at Cabinet, there was an accident on that road, and it is a very busy road with a lot of children, and particularly if unfortunately some people think to bring their children in cars, because those particular schools have larger catchment areas. But are you saying then that the consultation on Cross Deep has taken place at the same time as Strawberry Hill? Because I think for those of us who live just off Cross Deep, we don't really see ourselves as being part of Strawberry Hill, nor were we alerted to it or being able to take part in it. And obviously it will impact on roads such as Cross Deep Gardens and Poulet Gardens, and indeed on the Riverside development. So it seems a little strange you've done it like that.
All roads in the area were consulted at the same time, and it doesn't mean that we think they should be unified in one zone. It just means that we wanted to ask everybody so we could look at how things would impact in one strategic overview. I agree with you on the 20 mile an hour. I'm really frustrated that the LIP funding was removed from that it was taken away as a result of the cutbacks from COVID.
Sorry to just keep pressing you on the consultation. I live in an adjoining road to Cross Deep, and had it not been for the fact that I spotted it in very small print on what was online but not actually sent through our front doors, certainly nobody that I'm aware of was consulted on specifically on all parking on Cross Deep. Of course we were involved in the Zone D, but this seemed to be a very particular one, and nothing was shown on any of the plans that went through our front door. And
I wonder if it's worth taking this offline for the specific what you got through your door, because I know that it's been an overall view across the area that we've been taking, and I've seen the stuff. I think it was clear, but it might be worth me having a separate conversation. If I can get your details, or if you email me, I'll have a look into that.
Of course, be very grateful for that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. We move now to Wendy, who has our next question.
I suppose my interest is in social housing within the borough.
Anything specific, or a specific site, or a general update on where we are?
I could talk about research that's happened in Manchester that links the fact that many people on mental health wards are in fact homeless, according to their research in Manchester. It may be slightly different. But the link between distress and homelessness and mental well-being is very obvious. So I would like to live in a borough that promotes affordable housing. I suppose I'm particularly thinking about the Medway, Meadway, I think.
I never know whether it's Meadway or Medway. I'm exactly the same. But you're in...
I mean, my main concern is around social housing and support for people, so that they aren't, well, people that know me will probably know about research around under the Freedom of Information Act that I've been collecting, but I don't want to take up too much time because I'm sure everyone else has questions.
Absolutely. Well, you're in luck tonight, Wendy, as we have the chair of the Adult Health, Housing and Social Care Committee,
indeed.
I think, who Piers Allen. This could be tailor-made for you.
Indeed. Okay. I'm without being churlish, I mean, you do live in a borough that does actually take affordable housing and homelessness actually very seriously. We've actually committed to actually having more and more affordable housing. One difficulty being in Twickenham and Richmond and so on is that we have very little land that becomes available. But whenever it does, we've certainly under our administration go for as much affordable housing as we can. And certainly one of the reasons why the planning, I think, for the adjacent wards in the bakery and so on was because there wasn't actually, certainly initially in the first plan, enough affordable housing. So we do take it very, very seriously, and certainly in my role as also Chair of Health and Wellbeing, we know that homelessness and homes that are not permanent certainly do affect people's mental health and well-being, and we work very closely with our housing colleagues and so on, which is why we actually have partly why we have a housing and adult social care committee, so we can address these issues together. So I can assure you we take it very seriously and so on, but actually when it comes to particular developments and so on, one thing I'm certainly, when I'm on planning committee, is very clear that I really want to see the maximum amount of affordable housing that any scheme can possibly carry.
Okay.
Just quickly, could I just
yes,
say
of course.
I mean, there was, I mean, I may be wrong in this, it's just a vague figure I have in my head, but I remember as a socialist, the halcyon days of Ken Livingstone, there was like 25% of anything that was built had to be social housing, didn't it?
I think our target, Gareth, you'll correct me, is now about 40%. So actually much higher than that. But it depends what a particular scheme can take, and it's judged on its merits. But that's certainly for pre-industrial sites. For sites that were industrial, we sometimes actually have 100% is the norm, which is why on Third Cross Road you'll find that where the Pines paper factory was, that development there was 100% affordable housing, perhaps with one or two private residences and so on. So SE Muse is exactly that type of development. It was 60 new affordable housing units when that was put in.
Okay, thank you so much, and thank you for your question, Wendy. We're going to move on to a question now from Helen Williams regarding licensing laws and pub gardens.
Hello, yes, we've been very grateful since lockdown that has eased, that the pubs are opening up their gardens again. There has been a bit of noise, particularly at 11 o'clock at night. I live near the Prince Blucher, and actually they've been very responsible. They ring a bell and the people are promptly emptied from the garden at 11 o'clock. And I know the Sussex is the same. My concern is on behalf of myself and somebody else who lives near the Albert, that people dismissed from the gardens then stand outside the pubs making a lot of noise after 11 o'clock. So the pubs are being responsible, they're ringing the bells and getting people out of the gardens promptly, but they're lingering and they are causing noise to local residents. And I just wondered what we should do about that.
Okay, I'm sure that Helen has a view. I don't wish to dive straight into Helen Lee Parsons, ladies and gentlemen, chair of the licensing committee. We've got all of the experts on this evening, but if there are any other councillors who wish to jump in with a thought. Helen, you're on.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I'm afraid that unfortunately over the last few months we've had quite a few complaints as far as pubs are concerned and people leaving pubs. If it really gets too bad, then one can write into licensing and complain, and we will actually contact the pub and see what we can do about that. But the thing is, as far as the pub's concerned, if they don't learn how to control their customers, then we will be looking at maybe shortening their hours. Which, as far as the pubs are concerned, are the worst possible thing that can happen. So I'm sure that if you put in a complaint, we will, in actual fact, deal with it. But having said that, the police are very good. They will go along and they will see the landlord and the tenant, and they will warn them that there is a problem that you have just stated. So if you could send in your complaint, we will deal with it as soon as we possibly can.
Okay, and is that the licensing at Merton, is that the email address that we should use?
Yes, yes. Since licensing has moved to Merton, there's been a little bit of a delay, but right. We've got past that now. But of course, it has to come from Merton back to Richmond. But we will have all the details that you've sent to Merton, will come before us, and then we'll be able to make a decision if any further.
Can I just add something on this?
Yes, of course, Piers, please.
Yeah, I mean, this particular pub has, and I know who the other resident will be. I think what we ask and so on is if residents can keep diaries, and you know, note when the issues are, because then there's an opportunity for licensing officers to actually challenge and actually have a diary entries and so on. When these, it tends to be a little bit cyclical. There are periods when I know the other resident has had reason to complain quite a lot, and sometimes it's calmed down when licensing officers have been able to talk to the pub and so on. So I think it's a good dialogue, and I know one particular resident who lives close to it and so on does have the opportunity to actually have a word with the licensee and so on, and they do actually keep a log themselves of neighbour complaints and so on, because sometimes, you know, people are late in leaving gardens and loitering too long on the pavement and so on, and that's very helpful to actually then have a discussion, be the basis of a discussion with licensing officers.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. Okay, so now we move on to Elle McCullough. Alan, you whetted Elle McCullough's appetite with news of a 5G mast.
All right. Okay.
They would like to know more, but they're going to ask their question.
Yep. Sorry. Yeah. Sorry. I'm not. I haven't heard anything about this. I live very locally. I'm very happy for you to, you know, send me off somewhere else to do my homework, or if you're happy to give a quick summary about what the situation is, that would be very helpful. Thanks.
Yeah, well, it's very early days. We've just, as I said, it's only today we got the email that basically it's the pre-application consultation has just started. So this proposal is to put a mast just at the crossing between Kneller Gardens and Crane Park. Just it's quite a high mast above the trees. So yeah, I mean, basically you can it's early days. You can get there. Let us know your opinions, and we can put them into the consultation.
What I should add, just as sort of a bit of background information, what always happens after these events is that the community engagement team will send you out lots of details regarding various points which have been raised in an email. And I'm sure that the relevant planning application number can form part of either that email, or if it's still being assessed and not been given a planning number, we can make sure that that's sent out at a later time.
So it is actually a pre-planning consultation, and at that stage, before residents get asked, local councillors do, which is why Alan's sort of mentioned it today, and asked for any residents who have concerns to get in touch. But literally, we only got it this morning.
Well, there you go. So get in touch with there you go, you're back on, I've unmuted you.
Okay, so I need to get in touch with Piers. I live in Wiltshire Gardens, so to find out more about who, what, when and where.
Yeah.
All of the councillors' contact details will be available as part of the update email after the event. Okay, so we move over now to Rachel's iPhone.
Hi there. Hello.
Hello.
Hi. Sorry, I couldn't figure out how to add a surname.
I thought you may have been one of the Hampshire iPhones.
No. First of all, I live in Twickenham Green. To say thank you that since the last call, I live right by Collis Alley. Collis Alley has been deep cleaned on a number of occasions, and having the park guards on the green did make a big difference when it was really hectic. However, to echo Councillor Bennett's comments earlier, I would say antisocial behaviour late at night on the green continues to be an issue, with shouting, drunkenness, general disruptiveness. And we don't see any difference from a policing perspective. That certainly hasn't changed at all. And also, just in terms of maintaining the green, although the early morning cleaning teams do a really great job at getting rid of the bulk of the detritus left behind, can anything be done around areas such as the benches, which take a particular punishment and are really just ashtrays and quite revolting? I think that's my main point. I mean, yeah, really just the drunkenness and that.
Okay, Rumi, do you want to have a quick word about policing here? Because that seemed to be
sure.
Sorry to land you with it.
That's fine. I'm happy to do that. Yeah, this seems to be obviously a theme these days around antisocial behaviour and people in green spaces, drinking and causing noise. So just to give you a bit of a background, it's a tricky situation we're in at the minute with resourcing issues and the coronavirus, related sort of situation we find ourselves in. In terms of policing, we have two strands really in terms of uniform policing. One is the response teams and emergency response teams, and the other is neighbourhood teams, that we have local neighbourhood teams. The response teams, whilst Twickenham Police Station has been refurbished, they're parading out of Teddington Police Station and Kingston Police Station. And the neighbourhood teams, we work from Twickenham. The neighbourhood teams that I manage are basically, I have one PC at the minute and one PCSO per ward. Due to various difficulties, one of them's off with long-term COVID sickness himself, and another person's gone off maternity. So these are resourcing pictures that I have. With just like your colleague said earlier, he has 2 park guards for 134 parks. It's just a resourcing situation we have. So the position for me in terms of policing is, what I look at is really, and I wrote this down earlier, I was just thinking in my head, I'm more concerned about the risk of harm to members of our community, the real risk stuff, right now with what we have. Ideally, I'd like to have police officers, patrolling in all these areas late at night till you know, 2, 3 in the morning if I could, but I just haven't got the manpower to do that. So Park Guard help work with us in partnership. And what happens is every single day, we monitor the crime and antisocial behavior data that we have every single day in terms of what's actually occurred on the green. And we have officers that do go down there and drive past or walk past, and I've got PCSOs that go past. And, you know, I've been there myself, you know, and there are a few, I'm not denying that there are, you know, noise and youths and people a little bit drunk, you know, arguing, shouting and whatnot, and a little bit of antisocial behavior. And I'll be honest with you, at this moment in time, it's quite difficult to have resources allocated for this type of, and it doesn't reassure you, I know it doesn't, but it's difficult to have resources allocated for this level of noise and antisocial behavior at this time of the night with what we have. I'll give you an example. The response teams that work 24/7, they deal with things like serious violent crime, domestic abuse, dealing with mental health crisis, they deal with road traffic accidents, missing people, safeguarding young people, large, and this is what we're getting all the time now, large unauthorized music events that turn violent and nasty. And we've only got a small pool of people as well to work from, and these guys are ran ragged too. So what we do is we try and safeguard all this first, and then we look at what we have in terms of the antisocial behavior gets out of hand. Obviously, we get down there and you can call the police if it's really bad. You know, you can call 999 even because sometimes the antisocial behavior can be, you know, in a large group of, you know, 20, 30, 40, which has happened, and the response team at night time will come and they will disperse them when they can. So I can't really give you a utopian answer, but we are trying with what we have the best as we can. And the good news is around Twickenham Green, the violent crime and offences like robbery and assaults on another person is very, very, very minimal, you know, because we look at this data every single morning. So I can reassure you about that. Loud shouting at 12, 1 in the morning, we get a little bit of that. I'm aware of that. And hopefully these guys that are off at the minute will be back soon and we can get them out there, you know, more in numbers and deal with that. So I don't know if it's a perfect answer for you, but I'm just being totally sort of honest with you and, you know, open with you.
Okay, would anybody else like to come in? Okay, I will just, I mean, there was one point which Richard, hello Richard, you raised in your introductory remarks about there just being 2 Park Guard officers. As a result of the issues that we were having very early on when we had that meeting in Twickenham Riverside and the Richmond one, we did really beef up Park Guard patrols. I've got the details here because I used these for the last one that we did for Richmond Riverside and Richmond Green. Normally we have 67 hours worth of Park Guard patrolling in the borough per week. Since we saw this spike of antisocial behaviour, which was largely happening at weekends, we really ramped it up. We've employed an additional, so we've got the 67, an additional 144 hours of Park Guard every week. That's equivalent to 4 additional security officers Friday to Sunday. This will equate to an additional 720 hours of Park Guard patrolling within the borough. And that 720 hours is from the last weekend in July through to the last weekend in August. We're including the bank holiday Monday there. So that's 720 hours, you know, within this month. And we also commissioned additional Park Guard security to patrol down Teddington Lock, so that we weren't taking Park Guard away from the rest of the borough for that. And all of those additional hours for 1 month alone has been approximately £18,000 plus VAT. So we are taking it seriously. And yes, Monday to Thursday, it will be the case that it's just the 2 Park Guard operatives going around. But where we're seeing the real demand, we are increasing really quite a lot the Park Guard operatives that we have.
If I can just come in on that.
You can, Remy, yes, of course.
Yeah, I will echo what you just said, Councillor Roberts. I've worked with Park Guards regularly, and this weekend gone, I was down at Richmond and the Park Guards were there in number. They'd been working, poor guys, from 2 till 2, long shifts, you know, and we supplemented them with additional resources, and they were thankful. And it's that working in partnership together. It gives them that confidence to do their job as well. And we also communicate with them quite well in terms of, so when they're at Twickenham Green and we're down at Richmond Riverside and Richmond Green, we can call them up and say, look, what's the situation in Twickenham Green? And they'll say it's quite steady, And so that's how we also work. So it's working together, and it's working really, really well. Thank you.
Good. Thank you for that, Rachel.
Sorry, I just going to ask. So are you saying there have been park guards on Twickenham Green in recent weeks, the last few weeks?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
And
okay.
Also, it's the additional thing we should say, because everybody usually the response, we do see them it's at 9:30 in the morning. What as a result of my intervention, and I can see Paul Chadwick is nodding his head as he sees his budget being blown out of the water on an almost daily basis by me, is I said that having them at 9:30 in the morning is of no use at all. They need to be there late into the night, and as a result of my intervention, we do have them late into the night. Park guard and the police, of course, where they're needed, when they're needed. That's the thing.
Okay, thank you. I hadn't seen them recently, but it's great that they're there. And the day I have seen them, I think it has helped. They do very well with a big task. It's also going back to the maintenance of the green and the comments Councillor Bennett made. Is there anything that can be done around, I don't know, jet washing the benches, that kind of thing? The cigarette butts, that sort of thing. It's really, it's just unsanitary.
Paul Chadwick is.
I don't. We can certainly add it to the list of work that Continental do for us. I'll have a discussion with my team about that tomorrow.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now we move to Graham, who has a question regarding Cross Deep Gardens. Someone's watching the bill. Is that still on? I don't know. Graham, are you there?
I'm here, yeah.
Hooray, hooray.
As you probably guessed, I live in Cross Deep Gardens, probably not far from Susie, but I don't know Susie. I'm concerned that about the rat run to avoid the traffic lights at King Street Junction. I thought that through the COVID period we'd have less, but in fact, big heavy lorries seem to have found it more and more useful. We get quite a lot of vehicles coming through this way. I have no idea whether they're going up Tennyson Avenue or up Radnor Road, but certainly they do go through there. Radnor Road's got that little, both those roads have got a little wiggle in them, which doesn't make it very easy for the big vehicles to go through. I'm concerned about the road condition, which is deteriorating. And I'm also concerned that some of these large vehicles are certainly not doing 20 miles an hour. So that is a concern. The only real good thing that has come out of it in a way is that without the schools here, at least there aren't been any school children. Because normally, as Susie said earlier, there are an awful lot of drop-offs by vehicle. And we live close enough that we are used as a parking area. Some of the parents somehow got D-zone cards. I don't know how they managed that. That was looked into and the school has reduced that. But there are still parents parking for unnecessary periods of time. In the hot weather, they will leave their engines running. And I think I'll probably just stop at that because that's quite a bleat for you to respond to.
Justifiable concerns, Graham, not a bleat at all. Who wants to take on this one?
I'll speak to it then. Yeah, I mean, we were aware of it being a problem with regard to the schools, certainly with regard to the drop-off and pick-up. And we have been talking to the two schools in that area to try and encourage them in terms of active travel. So that is certainly something that we've been following up on. I wasn't aware that it was a major cut through during COVID in terms of lorries going through the area and going too fast. So I think we need to take that away and look at it because it was not something I knew about. I don't know whether Councillors Bennett and Butlin knew about that specifically, but I'd like to look into it to see the whole area being a cut through as an ongoing problem beyond the schools.
Thank you. I'd be very grateful for that, but I'm very happy to give you any information that you might be looking for from local residents. We believed that it had been raised in the past and been dismissed because we'd actually applied for traffic calming and been told that there was no case for traffic calming. At that stage, a lot of us had young children. There are still young children in the road, but less of them because our children are now in their 30s and 40s. But there are younger families moving in who have young children, and they will be as concerned as we were, probably more so because the traffic is heavier now than it was 30 years ago.
Yeah, and one of the reasons we've been putting so much emphasis into things like school streets and cycle lanes and improving the pedestrian is to try and get people to, we are worried about the level of cars there are going to be when it gets to September, when people are going back to school, going back to work and avoiding public transport in many instances, which is why we've been putting so much effort into trying to make it more attractive for cyclists, for children to cycle to school and for people to walk. So it's a bit of a worry that this has been a big issue during COVID when there's been less traffic on the road. So I certainly think we should look into it.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Graham, is that good? Bingo. Right, we're going to move to a question from Jack Fifield now.
Hi, really interesting to hear about the cycle lane that's planned for Staines Road. So I'd love to hear more about that. Really excited about that. But my question is about the bike hangers. I was just wondering how many bike hangers we have at the moment and if there'd be any plans to maybe subsidise the cost at all, because I know that one of my friends lives in a CPZ, I think Zone J over in Richmond, and it costs £53.50 for a parking permit, or £75, is it? £74, something like that, to park a single bike, despite the fact that the bike hangers presumably can take multiple bikes in the space that one car would take. It just seems a little bit, it's so much easier to get free parking than it is to get bike parking. So I was just wondering what the status is of that. Thank you.
Okay, I'm conscious that Kate is fielding a lot of this.
I do have some of the answers because I do. Sorry, I work with Councillor Eamon on the transport side of it. So we have put in for funding. We haven't got it yet, but we've bid for funding to get another 20 cycle hangers across the borough going forward. Sometimes it's actually difficult to get them to be accepted by the local residents, and we won't put them in if the local residents don't want it. So we had one for South Twickenham that we had to turn away because the local residents said it wasn't appropriate for their street. So if we get the funding, we are really keen to get those in, but we have to do it in consultation with the local street because it has to be something that they want and that they're pushing for as well. But we are hoping to be able to put more in across the borough.
What's the criteria for how many local residents have to object? Because in my opinion, one parking space for multiple cycles parking spaces, there might not be the demand now, but the demand comes after it's put in. Like, it feels a bit like a loop.
Yeah, well, we put letters out to all of the local residents on the street, and we'll get feedback from them. And if there's a percentage rejection from them, we won't push ahead with it because it would be the wrong thing for the street. But we see a lot more interest if you kind of in terms of where people are willing, the streets that are willing to have those is where there isn't necessarily the sides that you can get the bikes into the side of the houses and around the back, or if there's no room at the front for them to have within the front garden almost. So it's those areas that we tend to see the support grows in, but we won't put it into a street where the residents have specifically fed back to anything that we've put out and said we don't want it.
Sure, and I was just wondering how many are there at the moment?
Oh, I knew he was going to ask me that when I knew how many were going forward.
You ducked it beautifully. I was very impressed.
I'll have to look into it because we had a plan, and the residential streets rejected some of them. So if you send me a quick email, I can find the answer to that out. I don't have it off the top of my head as to how many have gone in. Sorry.
Thank you. Yeah, and any info about the Staines Road cycle lane? I'm aware that's kind of a second question, but any info about that would be interesting. But if you want to email that, that's fine.
I can give a quick answer that is another, that's another thing that we've put in for bidding for. So I think what's happened over the last period of time as a result of COVID is that a lot of the funding has been pulled from some of the projects we were working on, and we've had to bid to TfL, to DFT, to try and get the funding to do some of the things we had already wanted to do against their new prioritization list. Now we think that that is something that is a possibility that they will fund, so we've put in a bid for it and we're waiting to hear what it is that they will come back and fund in the local area. So we don't know yet, but we certainly know that it's an area we would like to progress in terms of having better cycling facilities.
Sure. And as Ward Councillor West Twickenham, we certainly support that, Jack. So
yeah,
thank you.
I mean, one of the things which always happens with any form of consultation is that usually the people who are opposed to something are the most galvanised stepping forward, and the people who do like something, by and large, will say, "Oh yeah, that sounds like a good idea," shrug their shoulders, and then get on with whatever it is that they're doing. So if you are in favour of things, then the key thing is to let people know and just to keep plugging away. That's the only way that things get changed. Okay, so we have Clarissa. Are you still here?
Hiya.
Good. Hello, Clarissa.
Hi, thank you. So I'm one of the residents who will be impacted by the demolition of Lockcourt House along Norcourt Road. I may have missed some information online, but I just wondered, given COVID and people working from home, what the likelihood of that is going to start, when, the level of impact, etc. I know the permission was kind of recently granted. It was delayed from Christmas, obviously. And then COVID hit, but I couldn't see anything more about what and when is going to happen, and so I just wondered if there was any update you could provide now about the demolition and then construction of the flats behind Alcott House specifically.
Okay, this is where I show my woeful ignorance of this part of the borough, because I don't know whether this is a south or a west question. So
it's a south.
It's a south. Richard, hello.
I don't know the answer to the question because it wasn't that long ago that it received planning permission. So when it's due to start, we can check, but I don't know the answer at the moment.
Okay, so we don't know when it's due to start yet.
No, but we'll try and find out for you.
Yep, we have your email address, Clarissa. We'll make sure that somebody follows up with you and drops you an email. Hopefully, sometime this week with the answer.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So we then move on to Michelle Wheeler, who has a question regarding the replacement of trees in the borough.
Good evening, everybody.
Hello.
Yes, I just wanted to ask that specifically around Mickleham Gardens, we seem to have lost a number of trees recently. I think one tree possibly had been driven into, and it was completely chopped in half in one foul swoop. And then we just had a couple have disappeared. One which went missing on Strawberry Vale about 18 months ago, and then another in Mickleham Gardens recently. And speaking to the more elderly residents in our street, and also because of the drop curbs that everyone's putting in for parking, we just seem to be losing a lot of the greenery in the borough. And I just wanted to know what the procedure was for, choosing how trees are actually felled and then how they're replaced. I have actually sent an email to the department. I'm waiting to hear back, just because I'm just eager to see if we can get those trees replaced, that's all.
Okay, I would be surprised if the leader of the Green Party didn't have something to say about the replacement of trees in the borough.
Well, not just the replacement. We obviously need more and more additional ones.
Yeah.
I don't know those particular problems, but clearly not all trees when they're newly planted survive either. So it's pretty important that residents as well make sure that new replacement trees are well watered, particularly in the sort of weather we've had this summer. So once again, I think we should check that one out and see how many trees we are losing in your locale. Well, So
I mean, our street is actually quite unbalanced, and I mean, I don't want to make it so specific about our area, but it's more, I've noticed that some trees are felled and then they're left with a sort of red and white tape around them. Does that mean that and the space actually, there haven't been a piece of pavement hasn't been put over them? Does that mean they're going to be replaced? So it's more just, as we all need the trees, and I think I'm trying to put trees back into my garden as a front garden as opposed to slabbing everything over. But I think it's just so important for the whole look of the street to try and get those trees back. And is there any way that residents can actually sort of raise money for their own trees if they wanted to? Is there any sort of campaign or sort of facility to do that?
Gareth, I know Julia has the answer.
I know, Piers. I unmuted Julia to allow her to come in.
I don't have all the answers, no. But we're working towards them. But firstly, thank you for your personal commitment to plant trees and not pave over your front garden. It's really important, not just for the shade that they give and the climate emergency impact that trees can have in helping, hold on to the carbon dioxide. But it's also about things like surface water runoff from front gardens, which is going to be an increasing problem as the climate emergency begins to make itself felt through extreme weather events, such as we saw just last week with dramatic flash local floods in parts of Twickenham. With regard to your street not having trees, I'm sorry about that. First of all,
we do actually, but they obviously
missing.
Have been
okay,
reducing, yeah. So.
Our tree officers put a lot of work in over the past year to try and assess exactly what the tree stock in the borough is, and this is the first step that's necessary, so we get a better idea and a better strategy for what trees we need to put where. And again, referring to the climate emergency, we need to make sure we get the right species for the conditions. Part of that means planting them better, putting more resource into planting them in slightly bigger pits. And of course, this costs a little bit extra money, and funding is always an issue, but it's a really important strand of our climate emergency strategy that we get this right. We have tried to get better engagement with residents where we have put new trees in to make sure that they can perhaps use their grey water to keep the trees in better conditions so they thrive, and a more rigorous planting technique from the relatively new tree contractor that we've got. But I'm very happy to try and follow up exactly what the situation is. Like I say, the tree officer is being very thorough in establishing which streets will be losing trees because they're in a poor condition, they're not going to survive and they could cause injury. And the next step obviously is to not just replace them, but try and extend the planting as well. So it's a really important area for us, and it's good to know that you have an interest in it. I'm sorry I can't give you more specific help on your particular street, but I'm happy to look into it.
Yeah. Can I just add, ward councillors get regular monthly reports from the tree officer about which trees perhaps need to be removed because they're diseased, and what the replacement is. So please contact one of your local ward councillors. They will have up-to-date reports and so on, and they can help get answers where perhaps they don't have the immediate knowledge of what's happened and so on. So we are kept up to date as ward councillors.
Yeah, I think maybe it's a sort of question of almost being aware of what's coming down, and then a celebration of what can go in to get people to buy into the actual, the greenery that's coming in and looking after it sort of within the street. Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. Alan.
I just wanted to add, in Nella Gardens, there's been a lot of new trees been planted relatively recently, and during the hot weather, quite a number of local residents took it upon themselves to actually help water the new saplings, and they're all thriving. And I think it's important that local residents get involved with helping to maintain these trees as well.
Yeah,
absolutely. For those of you who are on the call and don't know what that little pipe is, the little black corrugated pipe next to the trees, that's where the water goes in. So if you adopt your tree outside your house and sort of whip out every now and again with a jug of water and grey water, and sort of pour it down, then that will help the trees immensely. public service announcement. There you are. Okay, so thank you very much for your question. Michelle, do you want to come back in or are you happy?
No, that's fine. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, we were going to be, Joanna Waddy did ask something here regarding the discharging of sewage into the Thames from Boatswain Hill Pie Island. What I suggest we do is we will have Joanna's details and we can send an email answer to that one. We then move to, Michelle Wheeler again. We've heard from you. So I'm going to try and get everybody in as possible. And then if we've got time, we'll move back to additional questions from people who've said. So Maria Seal. We've not heard from Maria Seal yet, I don't think.
Hello, yes, it's me. I'm not going to be videoed on this one.
No, that's fine. You don't have to. There is no compulsion so to do.
Okay, all right. I think you'll be surprised what I'm trying to do. But anyway, I live near Twickenham Green. I'm on Crane Road and I'm one of the neighbourhood watch coordinators. I've also got teenagers who use the green quite a lot, and my concern has been that on many occasions they've said that somebody has been trying to sell them drugs on Twickenham Green, and I'd like to know what is going to be done about it. It seems to be an increasing issue. I also know that a young lad died in the last few months from a drug overdose because he bought drugs on Twickenham Green. It hasn't been in the news. It hasn't been in the Richmond and Twickenham Times. It's been gone very quiet about it. And I just want to find out what the police are doing and whether there's going to be CCTV. We've asked for it many times. What's going on?
Okay. Rumi, would you be able to help here?
Sure. Any kind of drug-related incidents like that, if anyone comes across anything like that, you can let the police know, and it becomes part of the intelligence that we, picture. You can do that by emailing our neighbourhood teams, or you can call the Crime Stoppers 0800 number, and you can be completely kind of confidential on this one. And what we do is every single day, again, we come in to our offices, we look at all the intelligence picture that we have around drug dealing and drugs. And if there is a pattern and if there are issues, then we do proactive operations. And these operations are done by not just the neighbourhood teams, but other proactive teams we have within the Borough Command Unit. In relation to CCTV, we have put a rapid deployment camera, which we've had to bid for from the council into that area. I'm not going to completely say exactly where it is, but it's around the green area, and right. It is monitoring these things, and we are looking for evidence. Again, in terms of intelligence around drugs, we can't talk too much about it. There are ongoing issues with that, and we are conducting lots of planning and things around that in the future to deal with drug dealing.
Have you experienced an increase? Have you experienced an increase? And if you have, should you not make parents aware so that they can remind their teenagers about how to keep themselves safe and things like that?
No,
because
in terms of increase, there isn't a massive increase in drug dealing in that area. We do get 1 or 2 reports of drug dealing in that area, along with most public spaces around London. But there's not a massive increase in that, no.
Well, in particular, I think it's important to let residents know about there was a drugs death, and no one's been informed about it apart from the people that actually were there. And to share information like that would be quite important to let parents know that there is an issue that they need to have a word with their children.
Okay.
Well, sorry, go on.
No, go.
No, I mean, in terms of if someone dies of a drug overdose or a drug thing, this is a very sensitive matter. It's a delicate matter, and we can't just, let everyone know what we want to say. These things get dealt with by our media team, and they release things if they feel they need to, for operational reasons or not.
Well, I just think it would have been helpful for people to know about it. And I know when I spoke to people about it, they were shocked that there was nothing in the news or nothing. They weren't informed about it at all. And the poor family I met the mother as she was running round to the ambulance, and it was quite traumatic. And I can understand you need to take the parents and the family's feelings into consideration, but if
Absolutely,
there is an
yes.
issue, and if there is an issue, then I think sensitively you could inform people that they need to have conversations with their children about it.
I guess what you're trying to say is it's about creating reassurance within the community. And what I can say is that, we review crime data and intelligence data every single morning when we're in, and I can reassure you that Twickenham Green and Twickenham as a whole, in terms of drug dealing and drug taking and crime from drugs, there's not an issue at all. There are one or two things, but we are dealing with it.
Okay, can I move on to another question then?
Sure.
It's about car clubs and encouraging more people to use them, and there's not really enough in South Twickenham, and I'd like to see more. I contacted Zip Cars in the past when my car was in the garage and I needed to use a Zip car for the first time, and it was really difficult to try and get one. So I'd just like to know what the council's doing to encourage more car clubs, to encourage people, if they're going to, not to buy a new car, but to use a car club instead.
Okay, who'd like to take this one? And then we'll need to move on after this, Maria.
Okay.
I guess.
Nobody wants
I don't know, because to be honest with you, we have put in car club spaces across the borough. There isn't, as far as I'm aware, a significant push to increase that dramatically at the moment. We focus quite a lot on making sure that there's electric vehicle charging points across the borough, with regard to what we're doing in the car parking spaces. But I hear what you're saying. We can have a look at what, I can have a look at what is available and where it is, and we can see whether there would be an opportunity.
Okay, and of course, and you can go to the council website, which has a dedicated page regarding car clubs. So if you just type car clubs in the website, and it will come to that. So thank you very much, Maria, for those questions. And we're going to move now. Barclay Driscoll, further comments, / question following Rachel's question.
Hi, can you hear me? Sorry.
Yes, hello. So you're putting the Hoover around there, Barclay, for a minute.
Yes, I don't know if Rachel's still there. Just a couple of points. If I could just do the first one, rather than just ramble on, is...
Yes, of course.
Obviously, I'm on Popes Avenue, right adjacent to Twickenham Green. Following on from Rachel's comments, I can say that the park guards have been there on a very regular basis. She said she hadn't really seen them, but they have evenings. I just wondered what their remit was. For instance, just to give an example, on Sunday when there was really nobody on the green, it was quite a cool evening and a bit wet and so on, yet you had the two park guards there all evening. It just seemed, I don't know whether you have a sort of just-in-time ability, or you can monitor sort of what the weather or the situation is going to be, because it was nice seeing them there, but they were probably quite unnecessary. Also, they do sort of tend to just patrol around the sides together. I don't really see that they're doing anything proactive. They do quite a bit of litter picking, to be honest, which is useful. But they don't seem to interact, or I'm not sure what they're there to do, because whilst we've got the two guards there patrolling, we still get the people urinating on our property and outside the church here and everything. There doesn't seem to be any interaction between them and sort of what's going on. And their presence is sort of, it's comforting, but it's sort of ignored in many ways.
Okay, so I think really to find out what the remit is raising his hand. I was just about to come straight to him. Paul Chadwick.
Well, so really the first point, no, we've got to deal with park guard. It'd be pretty unfair for us to pull them away from that deal just because the weather very occasionally is very wet. I think it's not a just-in-time based approach. So yeah, there's a bit of waste I accept. I think we just all got to accept that for the benefit of having their presence, especially on these long weekends. I mean, they'd hate me for saying it in this way, but there are two different standards of park guard officers. Some of them really are there mainly for presence, for visibility, and they're probably the ones you're referring to. And then there is our kind of more usual park guard officers who Rumi and his colleagues will deal with more, who are kind of fully trained, and some of them are actually ex-police officers. So there are two standards, I have to say, and that's part of our planning. There literally aren't that many experienced officers of that kind of gold standard, either at Park Guard or at their equivalent companies around London, because there is just so much demand on their time. So we do struggle to get very experienced Park Guard officers, I have to say. But yeah, there are two standards. Some are there for not much more than visible presence, but they are good, I think. And then there's the others who turn up and are that much more visible and are that much more involved in conversations and in trouble, frankly.
Okay, that's grand.
Right.
Did I sense there was a follow-up there, Barclay?
Yeah, we'll just finish that. Yes, I think that right at the very beginning, after that initial Zoom meeting we had about sort of public problems and things, maybe the second sort of class of guard was there at the beginning. They were more sort of like SIA registered almost, but since then it's very much just been there to be a presence. But I understand how difficult that can be. My second thing was
so the height that the gold standard do attend Twickenham Green, and regularly, but they do also attend Richmond, Riverside, Teddington Lock. They are drawn away on occasion, of course. Yeah.
No, I can understand that resources are very tight, and Teddington Lock has sort of flared up a great deal recently, and yeah. I can understand that. Now, another thing is, now we had some CCTV put in place adjacent to our property by the police. It was put in about 10 days ago, I think, something like that. Funny enough, the day after, somebody came and then adjusted it, which meant that one of the cameras were no longer pointing towards the green. And then the following day, we had a lot of sort of disorder around us and urination, but also a drug deal that would have been captured by it if the camera hadn't been moved. And I wondered if something's going to be done to reposition it. We did contact the police about the drug deal, and which was taking place, people coming from the green to do a deal right outside the Gifford Lodge sort of retirement home. And I'd also point out that the contact centre next to the retirement home there's a sort of little cul-de-sac, is a regular spot for drug dealing. I mean, what was brought up just earlier, and we have reported many times, but it does seem to be a bit of a hot spot. But it seemed a shame that the cameras were sort of adjusted slightly and missing sort of a key part of what they should be looking at. I just wonder whether there's something that could be done to readjust those.
Oh yeah, if I can come in on that, I will speak to the dedicated ward officer for that camera who put it in, and I will try and get that adjusted if need be, and I'll try and ask him why that was done and give you an explanation.
There you go.
That would be great, because it's a very good camera system with multiple cameras, but one camera is pointing directly into the contact centre, one camera is pointing into our garden, and one on the road. Whereas if it was moved about 45 degrees, it would cover the real hot zone of where there's a lot of problem, and then actually have a greater use.
Okay. Cool. Rumi will look into that for you either directly after the meeting or tomorrow. Yeah. Thanks, Barclay. Right, we're going to move to Tony Jenny. We're at 7 minutes to go, so if we can try and keep answers brief, and then we'll try and rattle through as much as we've got. So, Tony Jenny, who would like to know about the Mirway Road Day Centre.
Councillor Roberts, this is Ellie. I can't seem to find Tony, so I think Tony might have already left.
And they've not shoved their hand up. They're not in the sort of the netherworld list. No,
no, they're not.
Okie dokie. Well, we will find out about the Mirway Road Centre and drop a email to Tony. Paul Hancock.
Yes.
So, but I can still send that, right? Because it's only. It's not like it.
Hello.
Hello, Paul.
For your money. The 25th will be your last day.
Hello, Paul.
Oh, hi. Sorry.
Yeah, that's all right. No. a small vignette of domestic bliss. That's fine.
Yes. I understand, as regards the Radnor Gardens Cafe, I understand that the present occupiers have been served notice to quit, and that the cafe will come under the remit of the Parks Department. I've expressed my interest to them and to Avison Young, who are the consultants looking at it, at taking over the cafe on an interim short-term basis whilst its future is decided and put in place. There's a community toilet there as well, which could be kept open. And as I saw this as a community forum, I just thought, excuse the pun, it would be good to ask, does everybody have an appetite for seeing the cafe remain open during the period if there's no legal action? I'm assuming that the occupiers go, seeing it still open and in use.
Okay, who wants to comment on this one?
Yes.
Richard
Sorry,
Bennett,
Richard.
Katie Mansfield.
Well, I'm probably just going to say the same thing as Katie, which is that Paul has contacted us, and we've both expressed our support for him trying to manage this on an interim basis.
Yeah, to support that, it's a community area. It provides a service. It provides toilets. And it's something that we definitely want to see open and available to the community. So if there is an interim solution that works, it would certainly be something that we'd support.
Okay, Paul, any follow back on that?
I'm in touch with Yvonne Kelleher at the Parks Department. So any representations to her would be kind of most useful to encourage her to, look at doing this in a positive light. But thanks for your comments.
Okay, thank you for your question.
We'll do that. Yeah.
Okay, so Michelle Wheeler, we still have time. We have 4 minutes, so you get the second bite of the cherry here.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it was just based on discussion. It's not really about antisocial behaviour as such, but it was more about the litter problem. I live near Radnor Gardens, and I go over there quite frequently, and have witnessed on many occasions problems with the back of the cafe, and in fact, without jumping to conclusions, I think sometimes people in the parks are using the back of the cafe to actually use their bins, and then the foxes get into them, and it's a real mess in the morning. So anyway, that probably won't be a problem if Paul takes over anyway. But there's more going back to that of how COVID has thrown up this real issue with litter in parks, not just Radnor, but all over the borough. And it was just kind of, I was talking to my husband, it was just like, is there something we can do? And I did speak to Yvonne about this, about sort of working with local businesses, the likes of KFC and people like that, because the children or the young people, the teenagers or whatever, are just not, just not getting it with litter. And we're sweeping up the problem and getting, the lovely man in the park who comes around, and I've seen him in Marble Hill. They're doing as much as they can, but it's actually trying to get to the cause of the problem, of trying to educate our young people about looking after their space. So we've got climate change going on, we've got, a pandemic, but there's this big problem about young people just not respecting their own spaces. And I just wondered whether we could work somehow with a campaign with the local businesses to actually get to the young people, to actually say, do not drop this litter, take it home, do something with it, as opposed to just letting them drop it and then somebody clearing up after them. I know it sounds very idealistic, but there is something, even if we start so early on, I know kids have to learn about picking up litter, but there's something going wrong, because it's literally, it's horrendous what's happening in our green spaces. So it was just,
okay.
I don't know if there's anything to do with each Richmond town, and Twickenham town, something to do with the local businesses. I don't know. Okay,
who wants to come in on this one?
Well, I'll answer perhaps quickly about in terms of actually, understanding of young people. Certainly our primary schools, and I'm a governor of Trafalgar School, they have a very active green team, both in the infant and junior school. And of course, they do learn about and are keen and understanding, the effects of litter and so on. So I think we do have a very young, educated set of young people and so on. Unfortunately, some of that behaviour, obviously, when they become teenagers and so on, drops off. and I think that's an issue. And I certainly support if there are initiatives. We've certainly tried to encourage McDonald's at Apex Corner in our ward to actually have regular litter patrols, and we're quick to remind them when they're not being as thorough as they should be.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's a difficult thing, and I know teenagers, I've got 3 of them myself, but it's just that whole thing of, trying to get people, paying people to come and take the litter away, but it just keeps coming, but maybe, Paul, I don't know, maybe in the parks something can be done with recycling, in a less obvious place, but, people are just chucking, bags and bags and bags of stuff away in the parks, and actually some of that could be recycled as well. So I don't know, it's a big problem, I know, but anyway. Just
okay, I'm seeing gesticulation from Paul Chadwick and Julia Needham-Watt. So Paul.
Well, I defer to Julia first. She might be saying what I was about to say.
Go on, Julia.
Yeah, I could go on at great length about litter and recycling. I'll try and keep it brief. We're aware of the huge amount of litter in the parks. It's part of lockdown, and that sort of release, going to the park, eating and drinking and leaving behind your debris, it's not acceptable. We've been working with our communications team to draw up some new signage that's a bit more hard hitting, maybe a bit more relevant to younger people. We'll see how it works, but we're going to put more signage in the parks and do a social media campaign to try and get their attention about it. Children when young, and even many of them when they grow older, they have a huge sense of environmental responsibility, and we need to make sure we get hold of that and encourage it, as well as telling them off when they're doing the wrong thing and reminding them of the fines that are applicable if they're caught littering in open spaces. It's a good idea to get involved with the town centre management teams. I've forgotten the bids, we call them business improvement district people, to see what they can do in their areas. But a lot of the littering we're seeing is in the open spaces, which are perhaps a bit further away from their immediate area. To take a much broader view of it, we're also looking at the national government and possible changes in legislation that will put more onus on the producers of the packaging to deal with it, rather than it getting into the environment and being up to local authorities and community spirited litter pickers to deal with it. So I won't go into too much detail because it's not even my ward conversation, but I think something that as a portfolio holder I'm keen to do is keep lobbying for the correct changes to take place nationally, so that the responsibility for dealing with all the excess packaging that we see falls on the producers, to make it recyclable, to make everybody see that waste is a resource that needs to be reused in a circular loop. And hopefully that will put us all in a better position going forward. But we acknowledge there's been a huge increase in litter in our parks, and we're trying to deal with that. I mean, treble and more the amount that you would usually see, and we have increased the collections, but it's not a sustainable thing. So
I think there's deliveries to parks on there. I think sort of the delivery bikes are actually delivering to parks, so that becomes an increased problem. So,
yeah, it's a change in our culture that we need to be aware of and try and address. Hope maybe Paul's still got something to say about.
Well, I'd merely add that, that tripling of litter in our parks is awful, really. And I think you're all being too kind to the adults of our borough. An awful lot of badly behaved adults and irresponsible adults out there who are a big part of the cause of that as well.
Yeah. When Julia says she's not ward councillor, she isn't, but she's been into both Trafalgar schools and Waldegrave schools with me to actually talk to their green teams, and it is just as much secondary school children who are interested in their environment too. I thoroughly agree with their comments. We need to commend them when they do share that spirit.
Okay,
and I think we commend the businesses that have helped, because we have seen, like at the height of the issues with littering on Twickenham Green, the Sussex Arms sent their bar staff out to clear up the green in the evening, and I think that there has been that community spirit from a number of businesses, and we have to make the most of it and thank them for when they do it.
Absolutely, and I have.
Okay, this is the last question of the evening. Would any other councillors like to get in with their thoughts about littering?
Well, I just wanted to applaud Julia's comment that it's about the producers too. We can't just rely on educating the public. We have to change the attitude of the producers. It shouldn't be an optional thing. They must change their policies as well and their production.
Yeah.
I would just say to Paul, specifically with the park, there does seem to be a bit of an issue with bins just getting completely full. So I mean, that may not be the cafe's problem, but it is just something that becomes an issue overnight with foxes and stuff like that. So it is just something to be aware of, which you probably are already, but you know, so
yeah. I'd just quickly say on that if you're aware as a local resident of a particular bin that is full, and you may be aware of this already, you can go to the richmond.gov website and there's a form there, and that goes straight to the contractor who does our bin emptying in the parks, and they will be able to action it a bit more quickly, and obviously it's really helpful when local residents do give that information so we know where the problems are.
Okay,
thank you.
I mean, to be honest, Michelle, Paul is spot on. Usually around this time of the year, on the bank holiday Monday in Hampton, we do an open air cinema event. We get the Luna Cinema come in and people bring their picnics, and I host it and do all the the spiel with the microphone at the front. And I always say to people, thank you very much for coming. Please, if you've got litter, if you've had a picnic, if you've got bottles, take them home with you and put them in your bin at home. And then for about an hour after everybody's gone home, I'm there with me marigolds on, taking all of the excess brim rubbish out of the bins, because people just go straight to the bin. And if they can't get it in, they'll put it on top, at the side, all around. And the average age of the people attending Screen on the Green is well above 18. So it is as much an adult's problem as it is.
Absolutely, yeah. Sorry. That's a dog problem.
Well done. The dog's saying well done, Gareth.
Yeah, thank you. What's the dog called?
Charlie. He's a bit excited tonight. So anyway, that was happened when I was on mute, but now I'm not on mute. So anyway, thank you for that. Thank you.
Councillor, before you close, there's just one question I've just seen come in from Maria Seal, and I just know a quick answer to that. So can I just very quickly? Yes. It's to do with the suggestion for a refill centre that has come in to the community fund as a request to South Twickenham, and Councillors Bennett, Butland and myself are looking at we've had a few applications for it. We're looking at all of those this week, so she will get a response as soon as we've done that together. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, folks, there you are. So that brings us to an end. 7 minutes over time. There were a couple of questions. Sorry we didn't get around to those additional questions. If you wish, we can drop you an email and we can try to get you an answer to those questions by email later. So it just leaves me to do the thanks. So first and foremost, and I must not forget this time, Acting Inspector Rumi Mir, who I was remiss in not thanking the police for coming to Richmond. So thank you very much for your support. Thank you very much, Paul Chadwick, for your attendance this afternoon or this evening. Oh, crikey. Thanks to Councillor Julia Needham-Watts and Councillor Martin Ellengorn, who have been in attendance, and of course to the councillors that we've had with us this evening. So for West Twickenham, Councillor Alan Jorians, Councillor Helen Lee Parsons, and Councillor Piers Allen, and for South Twickenham, Councillor Richard Bennett, Councillor Michael Butlin, and Councillor Katie Mansfield. And throughout all of these community conversations, I think there's been about 500 the people who've held it all together, who've made it all happen, and who've worked tirelessly to make sure that we can put this show on the road are our community engagement team and our council's communications team. So they have done an absolutely sterling job in making sure that all this has happened. But as always, these are community conversations, and it is the community who we come to hear from. So above all, thank you to everybody, but chiefly thank you to yourselves. Thank you. And thank you, Gareth. Thank you as well. Not at all. A pleasure. Thank you, Rich. Thank you.